We'll watch Vladimir Putin right now because he's just talking about like what the fuck is up. It's good to hear from the man himself. I know. Okay, let's just get started, dude. There's a lot of news, but honestly, it's probably more important to hear the man himself, the man of the hour. Why is Putin still using Windows XP? Dude, I don't fucking know. He knows something we don't.
Military conflict in Ukraine. This would not prevent Ukraine from joining NATO. At the same time, they say NATO is a defensive alliance, and we're asked to take their word for it. In 1990, when we talked about the reunification of Germany, the United States promised the USSR that there would not be any enlargement of NATO to the east.
He's right.
The reunification of Germany, they said, will not lead to the enlargement of NATO to the west.
He's right about that. They lied.
To the east.
We lied, motherfucker. We lied a lot.
It was just an oral promise. Improving relationships with...
Just show the Kremlin check already. Dude, fuck Vladimir Putin, okay? You're a fucking idiot. Oh my God. Ban him. Ban everybody that says I'm a Russian operative or something. Okay? I don't like Vladimir Putin. Here, I'm just gonna put a fucking text message above my screen that says Russia bad, okay? Russia is bad, okay? I'm just gonna put that there because like some of you dickhead brain dead. Okay, here you go. Actually, no, not Russia's bad. Vladimir Putin is bad. Okay, are you happy? I hope this will be like helpful for you. I hope this will be like understandable for you so that like it gets through your thick fucking skull, because some of you fucking idiots are, I mean, you just behave like children. You just don't understand. It's like good guys and bad guys, good guys and bad guys, good guys and bad guys. Who's the villain of the story? Vladimir Putin's the villain of the story. He's just like Hitler. Like, Vladimir Putin is bad, motherfucker. That doesn't change the reality that like we are also bad, and what we are doing is actually making a bad situation worse. Okay? Yeah, he even fucking asked Russia to join NATO, and they said no.
All you have to do is to look at a map to see how America keeps...
Aren't you ignoring the Russians' actions in this situation? We are pushing it, but we aren't the ones on the verge of invading another country. Dude, Russia is doing military exercises in the exact same way that America does military exercises all around the world. It's a show of force, and it's fucking gross. But the reason why Russia is doing military exercises is because NATO's been expansionist. The Ukrainian government has quite literally fucking said, we're going to overtake Crimea again. Crimea is literally just Russian territory. That's the reality. The people in Crimea feel that way. The Crimean Navy feels that way. The Crimean military bases feel that way. You can't just be Ukraine and be like, it doesn't matter. My constitution decided and declared that like Crimea is actually not Russian territory, regardless of how many Russians live there, and regardless of the fact that those people want to be back with Russia. We don't care. We're going to fucking invade it. If you say something like that, of course he's going to fucking flex his dick. He's not a good guy. He's a bad guy, okay? Throw the question marks all you want. I don't give a fuck about the Ukrainian like border sovereignty that some of you dumbasses are fucking talking about, okay? It's so stupid. Crimea is not the same as Kiev, however. Crimea is not the same as the rest of Ukraine, however. Eastern Ukrainian territories have a lot of fucking Russian people living in them because Ukraine, just like Crimea, was a part of Russia, was a part of the USSR until not that long ago, okay? So obviously, there's a lot of fucking Russian people living there. So if you have a country that now has beefed up its Western interests, which is fine, okay, without neutralization, that is not abiding by the prior agreements that they've had. You have constant fucking separatist fighting going on, which is a proxy battle in eastern Ukraine. Rather, a civil war in eastern Ukraine has turned into a proxy battle, which is now turned into a geopolitical struggle that is international. It's insane because America is like pulling the fucking strings and making it a much larger a deal than it should be, because America wants a fucking weak Ukraine. It doesn't matter if Russia and Ukraine fuck each other in the asshole nonstop in this like Ouroboros ass fuck, because America gets to sell guns and America gets to also have a weakened foreign adversary, okay? It's great for America. That's why they're fucking beefing it up over and over again, saying Russia's going to invade tomorrow. Russia has kill lists. And some of you are too young and you don't know this. You don't know how many lies that the State Department has fucking made the media tell. But the very same motherfuckers that are like, oh my God, you know, Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. We have to immediately invade Iraq right now, are the exact same people who are like, I have sources that are saying that Vladimir Putin wants to straight up have sexual intercourse with every family member of the Ukrainian administration. Every single one of them. We have high-level sources. It's going to happen. It's going to happen after he invades, okay? And it like hasn't happened yet. And it's probably not going to happen because of the underlying material circumstances. This would be attrition. This would fucking destroy the Russian economy. Sanctions, which are already coming regardless. And you can be a fucking baboon and say this is imperialism, pro-imperialist takes again, because you are a baboon, okay? You are. I'm sorry. You are a stupid anarchist idiot who only learns politics by repeating talking points from either myself or other YouTubers that you have watched, okay? I'm sorry. You do not have the mental fortitude or the capacity to comprehend complex foreign policy from anything beyond an American exceptionalist standpoint where we are the civilizing force on these barbarians, okay? You are the guy who gets conscripted and gets just completely blasted in the fucking smithereens in like the 17th century. That's it. You literally are meddling with other countries' foreign policies that, oh, we're doing this in a progressive way. You're doing progressive imperialism while pointing to fucking Russia and saying they're doing imperialism, okay? Russia's annexation of Crimea is not the same as imperialism. It's not the same as colonialism. You are a fucking psycho. There has never been a circumstance in which an imperial power has decided to take over land where the fucking people living in that land are their own people. And the country's entire military is like, oh yeah, this is great. Finally, we can like work with our own fucking country and we speak the language and it's our country and we want to actually join. And then they also fucking correspond to numerous surveys time and time again, year over year over year, leading up to fucking the Crimean annexation and even after the Crimean annexation, saying, no, it's good. We want to be a part of Russia. You could say that's like Russian propaganda or whatever, but like you feeling bad about the Crimean annexation does not change the reality of the Crimean annexation being a completely justifiable fucking act by the Russian government, okay? And Hitler invaded countries based on Germanic ties at first? Yeah, dude. What are you talking about? Talk to me when he's throwing Ukrainians at a concentration camp, okay? Hitler wasn't fucking bad because he decided to invade Austria. He was bad because he was fucking killing Jews, okay? That was the problem. He wasn't like, oh yeah, we're gonna fucking annex territory with like Germanic people in it. That wasn't the main problem with Hitler. That was like maybe eighth down the line. Is the stupidest thing you can point to. It's like literally being like, well, dude, Hitler built the Autobahn. Yeah, he did. He wanted to fucking continue prior projects. You know, he wanted to move tanks easily throughout Germany. That doesn't make him a socialist though. It's so weird. It's like, oh, dude, they took over Austria, dude. They took over Austria. Like, what the fuck? It's like, okay.
9-month brain rot.
Was that the reason? Was that the problem? It's the Candace Owens take? Yeah, literally. It is the... Wait, you're saying I'm saying the Candace Owens take? No, because I'm not. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, like, Hitler had a lot of fucking problems, okay? Way before we talk about, like, Austria. Candace Owens was saying Hitler just wanted to make Germany great again. Like, you're completely avoiding all of the other shit that Hitler did that is so much worse because you just want to fucking make a Hitler comparison. That's it. I'm saying Hitler's annexation of Austria is not even offensive in comparison to the actual problems with what Hitler did. So stop comparing Hitler's annexation of Austria to fucking Vladimir Putin's annexation of Crimea. I'm not even saying Vladimir Putin is good. He's not good. He's a bloodthirsty, crazy person, okay? But he's also, I mean, he's not crazy in the same way that like he's doing foreign policy. He's not like, oh yeah, I'm Vladimir Putin, I'm gonna do nukes now. Like, it doesn't work that way.
I should hear we not like this.
Vladimir Putin is bad. Vladimir Putin is bad. Vladimir Putin is bad. This doesn't change the reality of Crimea. Vladimir Putin is not bad because of Crimea. Vladimir Putin is bad for a million other things. Vladimir Putin is a horrible authoritarian leader, okay? May or may not have seized power with a false flag terror attack. There are a list of like a million different fucking things that you could point to about why he's a bad person before you even like get to Crimea. Look at the screen. Look at the screen. Vladimir Putin is bad, okay? He's bad. He's bad. Anyway, it's just like, here's the problem. I fucking despise anytime I talk about foreign policy, anytime I go against the prevailing narrative that you hear on MSNBC, everyone fucking loses their shit. I hate to admit this, but Glenn Greenwald is kind of right. A lot of people in the American left, unironically, are just pro-imperialist. They legitimately believe the fucking State Department propaganda hook, line, and sinker. There's a reason why Bernie Sanders agrees with me. Noam Chomsky agrees with me. Numerous other fucking thinkers on the subject that you would normally point to as like really good, really sane people agree with me and not the fucking bread tubers that you are coming in here to repeat the fucking takes of, okay? We're not fucking shills of Vladimir Putin. Our worldview is directly the opposite of Vladimir Putin's worldview. He is an oligarch. He's one of the wealthiest motherfuckers on the planet. Why in the ever-loving fuck would I ever defend him? But you don't have any way of comprehending politics other than you just hate America and that's why you're like running defense for Vladimir Putin. That's not the case. Putin is not a good person. He's a horrible monster, okay? And so is America. The people of Ukraine are stuck between two fucking forces. And there are plenty of countries that have been able to successfully neutralize, like Finland. But the ultimate goal here is neutralization, to have a buffer zone that is that's not directly a part of NATO. Because NATO, no matter how much you describe NATO as a defensive force, is not a defensive force. It is an offensive force. That's the whole point. They train weapons onto and have encircled Russia.
In a long pre-recorded address are recognized as being independent from Ukraine. Well, despite the large numbers of Russian troops surrounding Ukraine and its borders, Russia has continued to deny it has any plans to attack neighboring Ukraine, but has long threatened unspecified action in the absence of security guarantees from the West. Well, amongst those guarantees, a pledge that Ukraine would never join NATO.
Seeing Donetsk or seeing the eastern Ukrainian territories that are majority Russian as separate regions is going to cause a fuckload more problems if neutralization agreements do not happen immediately. That is a diplomatic escalation that will create a situation where, oh yeah, we have to fucking protect these territories. We have to protect these territories. That is a fucking step in the wrong direction. They aren't majority Russian. Yeah, exactly. No, it's not like Crimea. You're right. This isn't like Crimea. Here's what I'm afraid of. Crimea is entirely separate from this conversation. But when you talk about the eastern Ukrainian territories where there are big chunks of Russian people, okay? There are big chunks of Russian people. My fear is that this will be similar to Georgia. And then he'll say, oh, we need to actually defend these territories, and that's why we need to fucking bring people in. That's why we need to bring in, our forces, our military, to protect these Russian people. That's not good at all. This is an aggressive action that Vladimir Putin has taken, okay? This is different than just doing posturing, saber rattling, military exercise at the border. This actually is aggressive action. Putin is fully aware NATO will never invade Russia. All of his advisors know this as well. No one in the right mind believes NATO will attack Russia. Russia has more military on that front than NATO and 1,000 nuclear weapons. This is about regaining peace of the Russian Empire. The entire beginning of the speech was about how Ukraine should have never even been recognized as a separate republic in the first place. We'll watch the entire speech now. How is what he just did the West's fault? I need your actual take here. The West's fault in this circumstance is letting America fuck up the conversation from the goddamn jump and not actually immediately move towards diplomatic stances. Exactly what France and what Germany was trying to fucking do, and not what America was trying to do, which was, they're fucking crazy. They're gonna invade anytime. They're invading tomorrow, brother. Let's fucking go. They're invading, motherfucker. They're gonna kill everybody. I heard they're eating babies. The Russian army's gonna invade. Then they're gonna eat your babies in Ukraine. And that's precisely what the fuck has been going on for the past 2 months. Don't you think that if the conflict does ignite, history will remember all the posturing and saber rattling as initial aggressive actions? Your take wasn't bad, but hindsight is 20/20, and while it could go either way, it's still apparent that you were not entirely correct in your earlier read of the situation. Okay, it doesn't matter what fucking history remembers. You're just admitting that, like, my earlier read wasn't correct because I engaged in proper analysis, which I still believe, which is Vladimir Putin rolling fucking tanks into Ukrainian territory is absolutely unfathomable. If my analysis is wrong, whose fucking analysis is right in this situation? Nobody fucking ultimately cares about this, except for like people who are like, oh my God, I have a stance on this that is unchanging. I have already admitted that if I'm wrong, if this fucking invasion does occur, then I will admit that I was wrong. But this idea that like, this is important when it's like a microcosm of the larger conversation, and how Normans will be like looking back at this and be like, wow, Hasan was so fucking wrong, is idiotic. The problem with like American leftists is that, of course, they grew up in the imperial core. It's very, very difficult for them to shake that off. It's almost more difficult for them to shake that off than shake off the fucking the notion that they have to live in a capitalist society. Yeah, exactly. Why did Shadows watch these cringe-ass YouTubers and then come cry about them in your chat? I don't know, dude. There's gonna be some fucking cringe motherfuckers. You are so fucking NA it hurts. The whole concept of international law isn't gonna make Crimea wrong, eh? You can't say I'm so North America and then bring up international law as though we respect international law here. It's very weird that a lot of people are repeating what you hear on MSNBC, what John Bolton believes, and then telling me that my take is the, my take is the NA one, the out of touch one. Alternative take to yours, Biden's was a good statement. Either Russia invades, at which point he looks right, or they don't invade, at which point Russia was curtailed by the West. Heads, Biden wins. Tails, Russia loses. Exactly. If Russia was engaging in the same exact fucking military actions that they engage in every goddamn year with no interest in actually fucking invading Ukraine, and they don't end up invading Ukraine, then Biden escalated a conflict to a position where they were actually going to fucking, where they made it seem like, Vladimir Putin is going to invade Ukraine. The entire what needs to happen right now is neutralization. That's it. I just want to show you other people who I guess agree with me on this issue. It's just, I know that a lot of the liberal, baby leftists care more about the aesthetics than anything else. So if they hear like people that they love and respect, maybe then they will understand where I'm coming from with my like actual anti-imperialist point of view. 1 inch, but there was a quid pro quo that NATO would not move 1 inch to the east. That was the phrase that was used in the interchanges, meaning to East Germany. And on that condition, they went forward. NATO immediately moved to East Germany when Gorbachev vigorously protested, naturally. By the way, this is literally what Vladimir Putin was saying. Like he was saying this in his speech earlier. So just remember that. He was informed by the United States that it was only a verbal commitment. It wasn't on paper. The exchanges, meaning to East Germany. And on that condition, they went forward. NATO immediately moved to East Germany. When Gorbachev vigorously protested, naturally, he was informed by the United States that it was only a verbal commitment. It wasn't on paper. The unstated implication is if you're naive enough to think you can make a gentleman's agreement with us. Also, the other part of the reality is even if it was like literally a written agreement that NATO would never expand, do you think that they would not find a way to violate that? Who gives a fuck? Who absolutely gives a fuck? Like, you can't even, people are coming in here and being like, actually, fact check, no such agreement actually ever happened. Like, okay, does that change the reality that NATO is still an expanding aggressive force, aggressively posturing against Russia? I don't understand. Like, what does your fact check mean in this situation? The Soviet Union is fucking done, and NATO is still encircling Russia. Like, what does your fact check change about that? NATO's involvement in Libya and Afghanistan, fact check, it's actually a defensive force. It's your problem. They didn't say that. I'm saying that. But the NATO moved to East Germany. Under Clinton, moved right up to Russia's borders. Just a couple of weeks ago, U.S. Military equipment was taking part in a military parade in Estonia, a couple hundred yards from the Russian border. Russia's surrounded by U.S. offensive weapons. Sometimes they're called defense, but they're all offensive weapons. And the idea that the new government in Ukraine that took over after the former government was overthrown, last December, late December, it passed a resolution overwhelmingly, I think something like 308 or something, announcing its intention to take steps to join NATO. For no Russian leader, no matter who it is, could tolerate Ukraine right at the
geostrategic center of Russian concerns joining a hostile military alliance. I mean, we can imagine, for example, how the U.S. would have reacted, say, during the Cold War if the Warsaw Pact had extended to Latin America and Mexico and Canada were now planning to join the Warsaw Pact. Of course, that's academic because the first step would have led to a violent U.S. response and wouldn't have gone any further. For example, how the U.S. would have reacted, say, during the Cold War if the Warsaw...
Okay. I've mentioned this before, but let me repeat it one more time. Okay? A reminder that the Cuban Missile Crisis was nearly identical to the circumstance where America put NATO ally Turkey, America put fucking missiles pointing at the USSR in NATO ally Turkey. Okay, they put missile bases in Turkey pointing directly at Russia. Well, not Russia, but the USSR at the time. As a retaliation to that, Russia built, or Russia sent like old ass fucking missiles into Cuba. Okay, this caused the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is where, like, this is how it originally started, with America using NATO to flex its fucking might against the USSR. NATO originally was created because the USSR was an unpredictable force of evil, okay? It was an unpredictable force of evil, and what we had to do was, align every fucking nation state we can against this communist force that was spreading ideologically and also offering material help to other countries that were having their own very democratic socialist, okay, revolutions. So for a lot of you to turn around and say, oh my God, NATO is so fucking pogger. It's so pogger. I love NATO. I'm a leftist, by the way. I don't know where you're coming from. Democratic Socialist USSR? No. USSR is not democratic socialist, okay? The USSR had a lot of fucking problems. They had a lot of issues. But the real reason why America and Western capitalists were against the USSR, it was because they were offering material support and spreading the ideology of communism and socialism around the world, which was a problem for fucking capitalist nations who wanted to seize all of that land. That was the difference. That was the reason why they were fighting against the USSR, because there was a counterbalance in the world during the fucking Cold War. But America did not like that. I think a lot of you are completely oblivious to this reality. About like third world liberation and about how the United States has extracted, or how Western capitalist nations have extracted natural resources from the third world regularly. This is a consistent position I've held since day one. Why the fuck do you think I get canceled all the goddamn time? Idiots, okay? Just because I'm not some fucking weirdo who like denies that like North Korea is kind of a shitty fucking place to live in, okay? Doesn't change the reality that like I have a different understanding of Western exploitation, Western imperialism, and capitalist exploitation and capitalist imperialism in the third world than like 90% of these fucking social democrats who are like living in the fucking imperial core. Obviously they have this take, because ultimately it goes against their best interest to fucking to recognize and admit this. Let's continue.
The pact had extended to Latin America.
Also, people keep saying it was Ukraine's own choice to join NATO. Okay, well, it was Crimea's own choice to fucking join Russia then. Like, you can't fucking be like this region of just predominantly overwhelming majority Russian people with a fucking military that is like literally Russian, with a military that joined the Russian military immediately after the annexation, that is time and time again fucking consistently polled on being a part of Russia, that's doing better now under Russia than it was, and then turn around and be like, oh, it was Ukraine's choice to fucking join NATO. You could say yikes all you fucking want. Yeah, it was so crazy that like no one fucking died. Shut the fuck up. They wanted to be a part of Russia until like most of your parents were alive when they were a part of Russia. They wanted to be a part of Russia. It's always been a separate autonomous fucking region regardless. Just because you don't understand the fucking history and you keep saying yikes, 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 my favorite YouTuber told me something different, doesn't change the reality of what's going on in Crimea. You live in fucking Ohio, okay? You are not Crimean. You are not Ukrainian. You are not Russian. The motherfuckers that live there are literally like, no, we want this. And you're like, I do not consent. West NGOs when Hassan doesn't like them, literally CIA. Western NGOs when they support Hassan's argument, fair and accurate. Hey, You fucking idiot. My argument is Western NGOs have historically been aligned with the fucking CIA, and like civil society organizations are oftentimes utilized by Western imperialist capitalist countries and Western state departments exclusively to fucking drum up support when there's like real revolutionary action, real revolutionary spark in countries, okay? Real uncertainty, real anger, real volatility. It's oftentimes utilized. That is oftentimes utilized to create a much larger fucking movement, okay? This is something I talk about all the goddamn time. That's precisely the reason why I'm pointing out to the Western NGOs, because they have every fucking interest in making it seem you're not hearing the words that are coming out of my mouth. And this is really a problem. Listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth, okay? They have every interest to make it seem like the fucking Crimeans don't want to stay with Russia, and yet they still consistently show that they want to. If those NGOs showed that Crimeans do not want to be a part of Russia, then I would be like, yeah, look, clearly, of course they're going to say that. Of course they're going to say that. Of course those NGOs are going to show that, because it's in their best interest. And even then, they're not showing that. Why is it so difficult for you to comprehend this? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Like I've said time and time again, like if I'm fucking wrong, I'll admit it. I get things wrong all the fucking time. And when I do, I admit it. Let's take a look at what the ABC News special report is saying about Ukraine now, though, because while so many people kept saying like, oh yeah, you know, Russia is going to invade Ukraine anytime now. Russia's going to invade anytime now. And that has yet to happen. This is an escalation from the Russian side. What happened today is going to be the biggest escalation from the Russian side. Everything leading up to this is insignificant in comparison to what happened today. Okay? The recognition of Eastern Ukrainian territories that have a decent chunk of Russian people living in them, that is an escalation. Military border exercises is not. Let's see what the American analysis on the Putin speech is now.
Putin never intended to come to the negotiating table.
And it sounds like we have Ian back. Ian, I want to go back to the question that I tried to ask you before, which is this reference to Ukraine being a puppet for the U.S. and this threat for the Ukrainian government to cease military operations in those separatist areas to stop the Russian genocide, as Vladimir Putin calls it, in those areas. How much is misinformation playing into all of this, and what is the real picture of the violence on the ground?
The real misinformation is me forgetting to fucking run the top of the hour ad break and then telling you can avoid those ads. Here it is.
Solution to this, it looks like Russia, looks like Putin certainly wasn't interested in that. And if you look at the narrative that's being portrayed, to the Russian public, it's that the Ukrainian military is on the offensive. I mean, we even saw the Russian military today talk about 2 Russian armored personnel carriers.
Even if you're wrong, it's the right stance to say there's almost no chance they'll invade, rather than the U.S. media saying it's happening, it's inevitable, it's going to happen tomorrow, it happened already, war, war, war. Exactly. But the problem is a lot of people personally have been invested in that narrative. So now they're not coming in here to actually hear the analysis. They're coming in here to be like, oh, I'm right. And it's really fucking gross. And it's really stupid. I oftentimes talk about how people view and contextualize the news on the internet debate space, and how annoying it is, okay? How annoying it is that the only way that, to be fair, you bragged about being right too. Yes, I did. And I still am. A lot of people don't fucking see this and I probably shouldn't have, okay? Let's be real. It's just fucking annoying to gloat. But I changed the title to Russia has yet to invade Ukraine, day 12. It's now day 14, by the way. My editors keep forgetting to change it. But I changed the title to fuck with all those people that are running laps and freaking the fuck out and saying, oh, dude, you were wrong. But they still haven't fucking invaded. So I am still right. And if they do end up fucking invading, then I'll be wrong. They want you to be wrong so bad because they've been wrong every time they've believed the invasion dates and America keeps putting out. Yeah, if they do invade, then I'm fucking wrong. My analysis was incorrect. When Russia annexed Crimea, Vladimir Putin was celebrated for that decision. Nationalism grew in Russia. They loved it. They were like, this is a great idea. This is a great thing that you did. Thank God you did this, whatever. Those very same people are completely against Ukrainian invasion because it's so fucking stupid. It is so It's a war of attrition that Russia will lose.
Gross.
I mean, they might not lose. They could overtake Crimea. I mean, not Crimea. They could overtake Ukraine inevitably, but it still doesn't change the reality that like the sanctions would ass fuck them, and on top of that, like the actual war would be incredibly fucking costly.
Base.
My fear now is that they're gonna say, "Oh, Donbass is a security risk, so we have to take it over. We have to take over the Donbass region because." It's presenting a security risk for our Russian citizens that live there, or our Russians that are living there, and that is, in my opinion, that's unacceptable, because that is like you're adding in additional territory, and that is expansionist. That is not fucking Crimea-like. Okay, that's different. Of course, they're not gonna go to fucking Kiev like the way that the American media is hyping it up, because that would be fucking silly as shit. But it doesn't matter. People saying that Russia has the capability to do certain things on certain days is being mistaken for people saying that an invasion is going to happen on that date. And then when it doesn't happen, people say another invasion prediction didn't pan out when one was never made. Capability does not equal prediction. America has only been saying Russia is capable of invading Ukraine, because even then they would be incorrect. Because America is not fucking capable of, or not America, Russia is not capable of fucking invading Ukraine. You just justify Putin's plans for 2 weeks? What?
5 months of Pepe Gou.
Okay, I'm going to repeat one more time. I do not agree with what Vladimir Putin is doing and doing a repeat of Georgia, okay, in eastern Ukrainian territories. This is a separate conversation to have than Crimea, okay? What's going on in eastern Ukraine is a civil war that has turned into a proxy war as a consequence of Russian involvement that is now being used as a fucking political posturing operation internationally, as a geopolitical conflict. That is what's going on there. There are Russian people that want to separate. The Russian government is helping them, okay? Because they want to expand on that territory. There's like mines there. It's big. There's some industry there, factories there. That's the reason why Russia is interested in expanding into it. Okay. But ultimately, the greatest thing would, in this situation, the greatest thing that would shut down all these conversations would be neutralization. Okay? That's it. Neutralization. That is what we are looking for. That's the goal. That's what should happen. And that's it. Okay? Is that good? Is that helpful for some of you? I think I've repeated myself so many times, but let's listen to the Vladimir Putin speech now.
News, but the Russian state media RIA is now reporting that President Putin told both French President Macron and the German Chancellor Scholz that he will sign that recognition of that Donbass region.
It is being used as geopolitical conflict internationally. It's kind of bullshit. It is a geopolitical international conflict when millions of Ukrainians fled into Western Europe. Yeah, that will be a fucking international geopolitical conflict. The point of this, the point of the problem here is that like diplomatic solutions are available. They've been available since day one. And the issue is that no one I mean, European trade partners of Russia want to have diplomatic solutions. Ukraine wants to have diplomatic solutions sometimes. And you know who doesn't want to have diplomatic solutions to this conflict? I'm sorry to say this, but Boris Johnson and Joseph Robinette Biden, okay? Let's go, Brandon. The Mac attack. Those are the two motherfuckers that are literally like, no, fuck that. They're invading. They're literally invading tomorrow. Please, they're invading tomorrow. They're invading tomorrow. It's going to happen again. 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 Really shouldn't speak on it when you're clearly biased. Having a personal attachment to Ukraine. This is true. That's the other part of this problem. Like, I am Ukrainian at heart, okay? I stand with Ukraine. I kneel for the Russian flag when the Russian national anthem comes up. And I stand up, okay? I stand up. I'm cocked. Hard as a motherfucker when I think about defending Ukraine. I have said on the record time and time again that Russia, aka Western Ukraine, belongs to the Ukraine. Okay? Or Eastern Ukraine. Sorry, not Western Ukraine. Russia, more like Eastern Ukraine. Am I right? All right, let's watch this.
In that report, that Russian state media report, it does cite the Kremlin So again, unconfirmed by NBC News, not verified by NBC News, but one Russian state media outlet now reporting that President Putin will recognize that Donbass region independent of Ukraine, and that he will sign that recognition. So an indication of the announcement that we think we may get from President Putin at some point this evening here in Moscow.
Please have Mark Ames or Derek Davidson on. I should have Mark Ames on, honestly, because I mean, he's been pretty good on this. If Ukraine's liberals are openly questioning Zelensky's fitness to lead now, you have to wonder what his far more formidable domestic opponents, hardline nationalists in Ukraine's security structures, oligarchs on Zay's wrong side are thinking and doing. And this is exactly what the fuck I've been saying for the past month, okay? America has never done this before. America has never fucking literally like beefed up war talks, armed and trained radical factions in a country that actually do not have a lot of on the ground support, but definitely do have fucking support within higher levels of government as a consequence of their ties to people like John McCain and people in the American military. Anyway, let's continue.
Наша цель нашего сегодняшнего совещания заключается в том, чтобы послушать коллег, определить наши дальнейшие.
Isn't this a strategic move? A country that has territorial conflicts can't join NATO? Bro, I don't think France and Germany would ever allow Ukraine to join NATO anyway. It's not happening. I don't even think America wants fucking Ukraine to join NATO. I think America wants a weak Ukraine, okay? My speculation is that while America most likely would not allow NATO, most likely would not allow Ukraine to join NATO either, okay, because of, you know, a nuclear power, because NATO being an aggressive, an offensive imperialist fucking base building project against the USSR and now Russia, being at Russia's doorstep would be an egregious act of war against Russia, which wants territorial sovereignty, which wants understandable autonomy, okay, which also has expansionist interests. Vladimir Putin does have expansionist interests. Because of that reason, though, it would be nuclear holocaust if NATO invoked Article 5 and brought in international forces to Ukraine and fought against Russian forces. That would be two nuclear superpowers duking it out. So that's just the truth. And that's what Joe Biden knows. I don't know what Joe Biden knows. Brandon is probably fucking brain dead. But that is part of the reason why, this is just simple posturing and doesn't go beyond that, right? Now that we brought that part up, what do I think America stands to gain from this? America stands to, one, weaken Ukraine, so they are more susceptible and more interested in the help that Western nations like Canada and America are offering Ukraine. Okay, if you're weak, you can be used as a weapon against an enemy, a foreign adversary of America's that we have decided is strong. Okay, Kurds know this. Kurds are wielded as a weapon, usually in the Middle East. And America is doing exactly that with Ukraine in this moment, okay? There are real fears that Ukrainians have towards Russians encroaching on Ukrainian territory, okay? But America does not give a fuck about the legitimate interests of Ukraine. America does not give a fuck about Ukrainians, okay? It's just, we'll give you more aid, we'll give you more aid, we'll give you more guns, and you can weaken our foreign adversary. Now, the secondary part about this, people that keep coming in here and saying you need to stop talking about foreign policy is the funniest fucking take.
Daddy.
Dude, you are literally a chatter. Like I don't know you. You've learned things that you've come in here and learned from me. I've consistently talked about foreign policy. My takes have always been anti-imperialist. Nothing is new. What has changed is your opinion, okay? You are now matching for the first time ever what you have learned from American history that you've learned here, that you agree with, You are now trying to apply it to contemporary American politics, and instead of applying it appropriately, your brain wiring is unfortunately too hyper focused on you being a labor aristocrat living in the imperial core, that and believing that America is still, or American imperialism is still, a civilizing force. That's not new. Okay?
Max voting age of 70 when? They're dying soon.
Is Putin planning to weaken the Ukrainian economy, then move in? That's a good question. I think Putin cares more about overtaking eastern territories rather than the entirety of Ukraine itself. I do not think that Vladimir Putin has interest in like taking over the entirety of Ukraine. Possibly just the eastern territories. Maybe in the future they might want to move to the entirety of Ukraine, but that's like 10 years in the future. And I also do not know what Vladimir Putin is thinking. I do not have the capacity to understand his brain. I can't read his fucking mind. Okay? You're acting like the U.S. is the bad guy here for some reason. Is the bad guy here for some reason? Again, there's no shot. There is no fucking shot you're in here. I mean, look at the top, dude. Look at the top. It literally just says in bold fonts, Vladimir Putin is bad. I don't know what else to tell you, okay? Vladimir Putin is bad. I don't know what to do. Should I get a fucking forehead tattoo that hopefully will allow you to understand and have a more charitable fucking take to what I have to say here? Some of you are so fucking stupid. It hurts my very soul. Okay?
At the same time, Secretary General of the Soviet Communist Party and People Commissar on the Merits of Ethnicities decided to build the country on the principles of autonomy, thus giving to the republics, to the future administrative units, wide authority when they were supposed to join the state. Lenin criticized this plan, and he suggested to make concessions to the nationalists, the way he called them back then advocates of independence.
Do you think Vladimir Putin
Basically, that was idea about creating a confederation and give the right to every nation for self-determination. That was the basis of the Soviet state.
Oh, anyway, let's continue.
First, in 1922, it was enshrined in the Declaration on the Establishment of the Soviet Union, and then, after the death of Lenin, it was also enshrined
another
in the
public freakout post
of the USSR of 1924. And right away, here we have a lot of questions. It raises a lot of questions.
Reddit is one of those places where they're like, Reddit is one of those fucking places where they're so fucking aggro on, you know, r/world news and all this other stuff. The post was already at negative upvotes before we looked at it, so don't worry about it too much. Those other subs aren't nearly as deranged as LSF. It doesn't even fucking matter because, like, it doesn't matter because a little bit of push on one end can, like, very easily change the outcome of a post and, like, totally fucking brigade it.
And first of them, and the main question, why were they making all kinds of concessions to the nationalists at the outskirts of the former empire, to give to the administrative units that were haphazardly formed huge territories, oftentimes that had nothing to do with them, and they were giving these territories with the population of historic Russia, and these administrative units were given status and shape of the state entities. And once again, this begs a question: why did they have to do such generous gifts even the most blatant nationalists couldn't dream of, and at the same time give the Republic a right to withdraw from the new state without any preconditions? At first glance, it doesn't seem clear. It seems like madness, but only at first glance, because there is an explanation. After the revolution, the main goal Bolsheviks had was to keep power, to stay at power at any cost. And for this, they went to any length to sign humiliating conditions of the Brest truce when the Kaiser's Germany were in the dire economic situation and the outcome of the World War I was already almost decided. And by giving any concessions to the nationalists inside the country, from the point of view of the historic destiny of Russia and its people, Lenin's principle...
He's criticizing the USSR, but Americans around me still call him communist. Dude, if you think Vladimir Putin is a communist, I don't know what to fucking tell you. Okay?
2 months.
I just like, he's not. He has literally talked about how Marxist-Leninism is a threat that the Western world needs to fucking fear as well. He's one of the wealthiest dudes on the planet. Okay? He's not even remotely socialist. You're a psycho. He's also not a good guy. He's not a good guy. He's a bad person. Okay? More importantly, he's a bad fucking dude. It's also impossible for someone to have a stance change on new information like the more recent Putin posturing. Exactly. I've already addressed that. Vladimir Putin recognizing the independence of Eastern Ukrainian territories that have a chunk of Russian people living in them, but are not majority Russian. Very different than Crimea. Anyway, let's continue. Like I was saying, Hasan, no matter what happens, you weren't wrong in attempting to reframe things and encourage diplomacy. This is the only answer. Agreeing to the sincere negotiations with European nations at the helm. The lessons learned is not to feed into the dualistic framework and be open about Russia's past misdeeds. None of it changes the need for diplomacy and regional security agreement. Yeah.
This has become absolutely obvious. Of course, what happened in the past cannot be changed, but at least we have to talk about it in an honest and direct way, without any political agenda, without giving any political color to it. I can only add that the ideas of the current political realities, no matter how beneficial they might seem currently, under no circumstances cannot and should not be a basis of the building a state. I'm not blaming anyone, accusing anyone of anything. The situation in the country back then and after the Civil War and before the Civil War was incredibly difficult, was critical. And now I only can say that that's how it happened. That's a fact, that's a historical fact. And as a result of Bolsheviks' policy, the Soviet Ukraine was created. And we have every reason to say now that it's Ukraine created by Vladimir Lenin. He's its creator and architect, and it's fully confirmed by the documents from the archives, also including the decrees, Lenin's decrees regarding Donbass that was added to Ukraine, and now great the sentence demolishing all the statues, all the monuments to Lenin. They call it decommunization.
Superiority. Capitalism.
You want decommunization? Well, we are quite happy with that.
Your lungs and veins filled
But
by the slime
don't
it
stop
passes,
halfway.
the most
We are ready to show you what would mean actual decommunization for Ukraine.
What the fuck?
Coming back to the history of the map, I would like to remind you that back in 1922, at the territory of the former Russian Empire, the Soviet Union was established. But the reality showed that keeping this territory and ruling this territory using the principles of confederation seems impossible because it had nothing to do neither with the realities nor with the historical tradition. And the Red Terror and switch to the Stalin's purges and the monopoly of the Communist Party, nationalization, planned economy, all that in reality was turned into a formality, nothing more. Principles that were declared but didn't actually work. In reality, Soviet republics had no sovereign rights. None. In practice, what was created, strictly centralized, unitarian in its character. state that was centralized. Stalin implemented not Lenin's ideas, but his own ideas of how state should be built. But changes to the founding acts, to the constitution, he didn't make any changes in this regard. Lenin's principles about building the Soviet Union were not reconsidered technically. It seems there was no need in this. Under totalitarian regime, authoritarian regime, everything worked well, and it looked nice from the outside. It looked more than democratic even. But still, it's a shame. It's a shame that from the formal foundations our state was built on, they didn't clear out this odious, utopic, brought about by the revolution, but destructive fantasies. And in the future, how it often happened, no one thought about it. The leaders of the Communist Party seemed to be confident that they managed to build a strong governing system, that using this policy they managed to finally resolve the national issue, but replacing the notions, manipulating the public moods could cost dearly. The infection of nationalism did not disappear, and that bomb that was undermining the state with this infection of nationalism was just waiting for its hour.
Putin talks about the USSR just like the online anarchist dude. You would think they would love him, yeah, but he's also not like, you know, he's currently not into LGBT. If he was, I feel like he'd have more anarchist support, maybe. Also, anarchists like to align with the State Department.
To come. Because once again, any republic had the right to withdraw from the USSR. In the middle of 1980s, against the background of raising problems, crisis of the planned economy, the nationalist issue that was caused not by some ideas of the Soviet peoples, but by...
He's literally an authoritarian, diametrically opposed to anarchism. Man, chill out. We're making fucking jokes, okay? We're making jokes. I know he's authoritarian. Oh, God. Well, I mean, there's anarchists who say ACAB and then support NATO, so, you know, that's another joke, which is anarchists for NATO.
Growing appetite of the current leaders.
Also, anarchists don't know jokes. That's sorry. I was being, it's ableist to assume that an anarchist can understand a joke.
Escalated. But the USSR leadership, instead of analyzing the situation and making thoughtful decisions in the economy and in the political system, in the governing system, they were only talking about restoring Lenin's principles about NATO.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be shitting on anarchists. Like, I literally showed Noam Chomsky earlier. I was Noam Chomsky posting earlier, okay? It's just like anarchitties that are fucking annoying.
National self-determination. More than that, inside the Communist Party there was a struggle for power, and each side, wanting to expand its support, started to encourage this nationalism. They were trying to play with it. They were promising anything to this nationalism. And when they talked about the democracy and bright future based either on the market economy or a planned economy, but when in reality people were getting poorer and poorer and the deficit got stronger.
Okay, this is fucking, this is boring. Get better content, Putin. Very interesting link about Putin's ideas around NATO and Ukraine. Bad title, but good explaining video.
On how Russia sees NATO, because A, it helps explain the current crisis, and B, it's something that hasn't been particularly well covered in the media. It's also worth saying that obviously Russia isn't one ideologically cohesive bloc. Not everyone in either Russia or the Russian political establishment sees NATO in the same way. So, just to be clear, when we talk about how Russia sees NATO, we're essentially talking about what the current Kremlin establishment claims to believe about NATO. Anyway, disclaimers aside, let's get into it. As we see, there are three places where the Russian and Western perspectives on NATO diverge. First, while NATO and the West see NATO as primarily a mutual defence pact, Russia doesn't consider NATO to be a purely defensive alliance. Second, Russia doesn't see NATO as an exclusively military alliance. It also sees it as a political and cultural project.
I mean, this is true. This is accurate.
Third,
so far,
Russia
the video
sees NATO
is
not
accurate.
as a post-World War II phenomenon, but a continuation of the West's anti-Russian foreign policy, which began in the early 17th century. Alright, let's start with the first one, the idea that NATO isn't a purely defensive alliance. NATO's official policy states that the alliance does not seek confrontation and poses no threats to Russia, and the only bit in NATO's founding charter that talks about military action is Article 5, a mutual defence clause which says that if NATO members suffer an armed attack, then all other members will defend it. On its website, NATO rejects the idea that NATO is aggressive, insisting that NATO is a defensive alliance. You get the point. NATO clearly self-perceives as a defensive alliance. Russia, however, isn't convinced. And to be fair to them, NATO does have a history of getting involved in conflicts that doesn't really involve its own members.
That's actual fairness from an English-speaking channel that I was not expecting.
The cases cited most often by Russia are Kosovo and Libya. Let's start with Kosovo, where NATO intervened in 1999. At the time, US-Russian relations were already at a low following the election of a former KGB agent as Russian Prime Minister in September 1998, and the US bombing of Iraq in December 1998. Iraq and Russia were allies, and the Americans failed to notify Russia in advance. NATO-Russia relations were also strained in part because the Americans and the Russians weren't getting on, but also because NATO had just accepted Poland, Hungary and the Czech Republic in March 1999, all former members of the Warsaw Pact. On the 23rd of March 1999, Javier Solana announced that NATO would begin a bombing campaign in Yugoslavia against the Serb armies, in order to prevent, quote, humanitarian catastrophe. Somewhat unsurprisingly, this didn't go down well with the Russians. Although Yugoslavia and Russia weren't formal allies at the time, Serbs and Russians share a Slavic and Christian Orthodox history, and Russian nationalists described NATO's bombing campaign as an attack on their Slavic brothers. Now, the Russians never really bought NATO's claim that the bombing campaign in Kosovo was a humanitarian intervention, not least because NATO failed to gain the approval of the UN Security Council, and the campaign itself killed at least 488 Yugoslav civilians. At a time when NATO-Russian tensions were already strained, Russia saw NATO's involvement in Kosovo.
Here's the point, okay? Here's the point. When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We talk about this. I'm going to try to reduce this to, like, police brutality, right? When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Because NATO is a military alliance, the only humanitarian way of stopping active genocide, ongoing conflicts all around the fucking planet is by bombing them. That's it. It's that simple. And while the bombing of Yugoslavia is one that is contentious for obvious reasons, okay, one that people disagree on, including Noam Chomsky, including Bernie Sanders. The Libyan one is a more recent example and one that is absolutely indefensible.
A dangerous precedent allowing NATO to get involved in conflicts outside of its borders as long as it could come up with some semi-plausible humanitarian pretext. Putin himself described Kosovo independence as a terrible precedent that breaks up the entire system of international relations. From Russia's perspective, in 1999 NATO was expanding towards Russia, which doesn't have a great human rights record, while at the same time saying that we can bomb non-NATO countries for humanitarian reasons. It's a similar story with Libya, where NATO intervened in March 2011 to put an end to Gaddafi's brutal regime against Libyan rebels. While Russia abstained on UN Security Council Resolution 1973, which authorised member states to take, quote, all necessary measures, Russia considered NATO's subsequent campaign excessive and therefore illegal.
Which, by the way, it's true. Like 100%. 100% true.
The UN tried to pass a similar resolution regarding Syria, Russia vetoed it.
Like,
clear sign that they...
Again, look at the sign. I'm tapping the sign. Vladimir Putin is bad, But he's right in this situation, okay? And look no further than what is going on in Libya at the moment. And also understand that these are disposable countries. These are disposable countries that America and Western interests will just use and fucking cast aside, ultimately to weaken what America has declared their foreign adversary. Even if millions of people are fucking displaced, even if millions of people are dead as a consequence of this, that's still a W because you got to fucking sell your guns, one side, and on top of that, you weakened economically, politically, the other side that you consider to be a damning foreign adversary. All in an effort to reinforce your hegemonic status. That is what the ultimate goal here is by West, specifically, not even the West. I don't think France, I don't think Germany, I don't think a lot of these countries are interested in what America and especially the UK and even Canada is interested in. I think they're super far away. And the further away you are from Russia and Ukraine, the more aggro of a fucking take you have. Because Germany especially has a trade relationship with Russia. They get their energy from Russia. That is a relationship that you can utilize to your advantage in times when the Russian administration is deciding to do whatever the fuck. France not interested in Libya? Sorry. I was talking about Ukraine. Of course France is no. I'm talking about Ukraine. France is, of course, it's France. We're talking about North Africa. France thinks it's their territory. That's different. I'm not talking about Libya. I'm talking about Ukraine. Sorry.
They didn't like what happened in Libya and weren't planning on letting it happen again. Russia didn't like NATO's overreach in Libya for a couple of reasons. At the time, Russia was trying to convince Gaddafi to give the Russian Navy access to a port in the Mediterranean, and Russian companies were investing in Libyan oil reserves. NATO's intervention and the subsequent chaos ruined all of that. But most of all, Russia saw NATO's involvement in Libya as proof that NATO had become even more activist in its interventions. After all, Libya didn't threaten NATO in any way, and had even begun to cooperate actively with Western governments in key areas such as nuclear disarmament.
Remember what I talked about? When I said, like, even if you don't have nukes? I don't think Libya ever had nukes, by the way. I don't know why, like, people said, did Libya ever have nukes? I thought that was a lie.
You get the point. After Libya and Kosovo, Russia began to see NATO not...
Russian troops in Ukraine, and we're watching confirmation bias video. Dude, there is no confirmation bias. I have already fucking described that what Vladimir Putin did today is entirely different than what has happened leading up to this. It is an expansionist fucking policy. Okay? That is completely, if the troops are actually fucking moving into Eastern Ukrainian territories to defend Eastern Ukrainian territorial interests and the Russians living in Eastern Ukrainian territories, that is 1,000% an aggressive action that is beyond posturing. I don't know what more you want from me with respect to the situation, okay? Like, I am not in agreement with the peacekeeping mission in Donetsk and Luhansk, okay? I'm not. Better late than never. You fucking idiot. Shut the fuck up. That is entirely different than Russia is going to invade the entirety of Ukraine, okay? That's still unacceptable, but you motherfuckers have been constantly talking about how Russia is invading today, tomorrow. It happened. It's been happening. Okay? You've been wrong this entire fucking time. I'm simply looking at this from the point of view of what Russia can do, okay? What Russia can do and what they can't do, what they have the allowance to do. A full-blown invasion of Ukraine would fucking destroy Russia. Of course, more importantly than that, would destroy Ukraine as well. You know who suffers in that situation? The citizens, the workers in Ukraine and the workers in fucking Russia. Those are the people who get ass clapped.
Merely as a defensive alliance, but also an offensive one that uses the pretext of humanitarian intervention to justify aggressive actions. Russia sees NATO's member support for Ukraine in a similar light.
So glad Hasan is standing up to the Western nations and is siding with Russia and Ukraine. Wait, what?
Ukraine is not a NATO member, but NATO has nonetheless decided to get involved. Now, in NATO's defence, it's worth saying that NATO's action in Libya was supported by the Arab League and involved 14 Arab coalition members, and the UN International Commission of Inquiry on Libya found no breach of UN SCR 1973 or international law, concluding instead that NATO conducted a highly precise campaign with demonstrable determination to avoid civilian casualties. It's also worth saying that NATO would claim that both interventions were genuinely humanitarian, but, well, apparently the Russians don't buy it. On to the second difference. Russia sees NATO
more humanitarian
as a
efforts
cultural
by
and
NATO.
political project as well as a military one. One of the reasons that Russia is so wary of Ukraine joining NATO is that Russia believes that NATO membership will also make Ukraine more politically and culturally Western. And, well, Putin doesn't like the idea of a functioning Western-style democracy on his doorstep. And this is sort of true. NATO is nominally based on democracy, individual liberty, and the rule of law.
This part is bullshit. Putin just ordered a peacekeeping operation in Eastern Ukraine. Yeah, I saw. We're gonna move into that after this. Okay? We're gonna move into that in a second once this video is done.
Members who share, quote, Western cultural ideals. Spain only joined in 1982 after a successful transition to democracy. In 1991, NATO told the Visegrad countries that membership was conditional on economic and democratic liberalisation, and Slovakia was excluded from the 1997 Madrid summit because of undemocratic behaviour by nationalist Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. NATO's membership action plans, first introduced in 1999, require members to uphold the rule of law.
Oh, I totally avoided this. Hold on, sorry. The idea that, like, NATO's political... Okay. This part is bullshit, okay? This part is bullshit. Portugal was a founding member. It was a dictatorship. The liberal POV that, like, Russia is fearful of a Jeffersonian democracy is a laughable notion. It's not that. It has never been that. That's not a real thing, okay? We don't even have, like, a fucking real democracy. Turkey does not have a democracy. You don't need to have a real fucking democracy to be a part of NATO. That's bullshit, okay? It's all about strategic interests. And if anyone if any fucking person that has even read a lick of Marxist fucking theory tries to pull that shit on you, shove that back down their throat. That is, like, literally just the diametrically opposed to dialectical materialist thought, okay? Just the exact opposite. Like, no country operates on these, like, idealistic boundaries, okay? That's fucking bullshit. Anyone that says like NATO is spreading democracy, and that's precisely what the fucking the Russian government fears, like, shut the fuck up, okay? Not real, never been real. You're a fucking psycho. Russia did not fucking annex Crimea because they were fearful of Crimea being democratic or some shit, okay? They annexed Crimea because Crimea historically has majority fucking Russian population, always been a fucking autonomous region, always had military bases, always been fucking Russia's entry point into the Black Sea, incredibly important strategic position, and was legitimately worried. The people of Crimea were worried about the nationalistic rhetoric and the ongoing the ongoing battles in other eastern Ukrainian territories between separatist forces that had become a proxy war for Russia because they were backed by the Russian military against the nationalist forces of the Ukrainian National Guard. Okay? Russia, of course, did not want Crimea, its fucking entry point into the Black Sea, its historic entry point into the fucking Black Sea, where it has naval bases, to be a part of that conflict. Especially considering that there was an overwhelming majority of Russians living there, okay? And they are happy about this annexation. Time and time again has been proven by numerous fucking Western sources. So, that's the main reason. That is the main reason. not because fucking ideological differences or anything like that. It's bullshit.
Western cultural ideals. Spain only joined in 1982 after a successful transition to democracy. In 1991, NATO told the Visegrad countries that membership was conditional on economic and democratic liberalisation, and Slovakia was excluded from the 1997 Madrid summit because of undemocratic behaviour by nationalist Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. NATO's membership action plans, first introduced in 1999, require members to uphold the rule of law, individual rights, and democracy. You get the point. NATO does usually require member states to commit to the so-called Western cultural ideals of democracy.
This part is bullshit. Anyway, that part I disagree with 100%.
Now, this might not sound controversial. Democracy, individual liberty, and the rule of law all sound like good things. But Putin sees this apparent concern for human rights as a threat to Russia's political culture. The third and final way that Russian and Western perceptions of NATO diverge concerns history. To understand this point, you need to know that Russian politics, and especially Putin, are big on their history. This was apparent in Putin's recent speech in Ukraine, where he made reference to the Kievan Rus, a 9th to 13th century confederal state covering parts of present-day Ukraine, Belarus and Western Russia, when describing Ukrainians and Russians as one people. Anyway, most of the West sees NATO as essentially a peacekeeper, there to prevent a repeat of World War II. Putin, however, claims to see NATO as a continuation of an anti-Russian animus in Europe that predates World War II.
Anyway, do you have thoughts on how this might end? We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Macron. We'll see what happens with the conversation between, NATO nations, EU leadership. Hopefully, hopefully that'll, there will be a solution to this, and there will be like another agreement that. You admit that Russia's doing imperialism, right? Yes, dude. What the fuck do you want? Of course. That's like taking over this territory. Taking over this territory, regardless of whatever their fucking position is unacceptable. Okay? I don't know why you are hyper focused on the imperialism. Like, who cares? Yes, imperialism. Russia is doing an imperialism. Oh my lord, dude. Oh my lord. I've been anti-fucking Russia invading Ukraine since day one. I don't know why the fuck you dumbasses think that I'm like pro-Russia invading Ukraine. I am vindicating your points of view, you fucking dumb little babies, okay? They didn't annex it though. They did a half measure like they did with South Ossetia and Abkhazia. I can't even say it fucking right. It would be easier if you just say outright that Putin is bad. You know me, I famously have not fucking ever said Vladimir Putin is bad. Look at the sign. Should I put it like here? Is that better for you to see? Is that better? People have been actually calling you a Russian imperialist. It's been very weird. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder where they got that fucking point of view from. And they'll say it's because of me. It's because of like what I've said so far. But it's literally because these fucking douchebags that make videos saying I'm a Russian imperialist or whatever the fuck and clip chimp shit that of course don't show my take about like fucking how I feel about Putin escalating tensions. Here, I'll give you some cool footage to watch. Okay, there you go. Here, Russia, the video uploaded 3 hours ago, located in the Bryansk region of Russia, 15 miles from the border. The tanks are driving south road to the Ukrainian border. Bro, the Russians there want it, so it works. No, that is different, okay? Please stop conflating this to the Crimea. It's not the same as Crimea, please. For the love of Christ, you sound like fucking idiots, dude. It's not the fucking same as Crimea. Yes, Georgia is a better example than Crimea with the context of what is happening currently. What is this fucking music, dude? Why do you disagree with it having World War III potential? Because World War III is a nuclear war, okay? World War III is a nuclear war. Your tweet is some moist critical ass level acquiescence. The claim was full-scale Russian invasion at 1 a.m. last Wednesday. They moved the goalposts 3 times, and 3 they were wrong and you were right. The fuck is this fit for broadcast take? Pre-firing backpedals for nothing. You were right, no name for any admission bullshit. Dog, it's much easier for me to, first of all, I do disagree with this action that Russia is taking. So I want to make that clear. And I don't want any motherfucker to turn around and like misconstrue my point of view on this, because I know people are working so deliberately on this. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that I am not a fan of what is happening currently, okay? This is something that I have feared from the jump, as I have mentioned time and time again. It doesn't matter though. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. This is still an unacceptable action from the Russian side. It is an actual fucking act of aggression from the Russian side, rather than all that we have seen with respect to misinformation from the American side, okay? Anyway, let's continue. America hasn't just been doing misinformation, though. It started sending in billions of arms and sent thousands of American troops into Ukraine at the start of this. No, they didn't send troops into Ukraine. They sent thousands of troops into bordering NATO countries of Ukraine. The issue here, however, is no matter what my fucking take is, no matter if I say like I'm wrong and I was wrong and I did not think that this was, Putin would escalate to this fucking degree. Anyway, quite the hardware here. Dude, it's just like, are there any fucking Russian videos that don't feature... On Twitter, you just said you're wrong. I am confusion. Okay. I was wrong to assume that Russia would not fucking invade any piece of Ukrainian territory, okay? I was wrong. I was not wrong, however, in criticizing the ongoing misinformation campaign by American media, claiming that, like, Russia was going to invade. I was demonstrably correct. Because they did not at the time that they fucking said that it was happening. Dude, you're taking shit for Putin just as you did for Valkyrie. Because people don't care. People do not fucking care about the actual consequences. They don't care about the fucking news story. They only care about like analyzing politics from a much more palatable approach. Not only that, but I also personally admitted that like if Russia invades Ukrainian territory, I will admit that I was wrong and my speculation was incorrect. So now they're fucking moving the goalposts into, well, you were gloating and that's why we're gloating. Like, shut the fuck up. None of this matters. You didn't get a victory, okay? You know who's going to be hurt by this? Ukrainians. Shut the fuck up. Stop fucking analyzing politics from the framework of fucking political posturing amongst like debate streamers or whatever the fuck. Holy shit. Of course, when new information comes out that shows that I'm wrong, I will admit that I'm wrong. My analysis was incorrect. Hey, if you like this video, please subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss out on any future videos.